Welcome to Bookwrights House, where we celebrate authors who take us into bold new worlds. Today we're joined by James Domenighini, author of Chaos Company, a gritty and cinematic print that blends mythic, sci-fi, and military drama into one unforgettable story. Good afternoon, James. I'm Elijah Barcelona, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to Bookwrights House.
Thank you.
Okay, to start the interview, let's start first with the writing style and your technique. So, your writing in Chaos Company combines mythological elements like the Gorgons with hard science fiction. And how do you balance the speculative side with the mythic, especially in tone, pacing, and world building?
Well, see, that's an interesting question. Basically, I started out with the idea of what I wanted. I wanted to have a kind of a war of the worlds story, but not set like in the movie Independence Day with an alien force landing on Earth. I wanted both sides to be equal in everything, and then I went on from there. The Gorgons, they just look like, their appearance just looks like that. This is the book here has a picture of the Gorgon right there.
Okay.
And so its appearance. Am I getting glare on there? Let's try that. So you see,
Yeah,
that's its appearance. That's not really so much mythology in there, but just the choice of calling them that because they look like that. My stories are character driven, and the characters are the most important part of the stories. The background is important, and even the aliens have a background, so there's some importance in there. I'm not really sure what else you want me to say at this time. I can tell you that what I try to do with every story, if it's a science fiction story, and action adventures are what I do. So I try to give it an action at the very beginning. In the beginning of Chaos Company, my hero is there's an enemy, an alien, a Gorgon around the corner of a city that's been demolished, and he's going. His job is to get rid of that alien, to kill him before that one kills him, my hero and his teammates. And so that's where it begins like that. Gets around the corner and he shoots him, and then they can get out of there before more will come after him. Like I said, the characters are important. So I have the one character and another with him, his best friend, which is leading another fire team, and they have some little conversations there, that establish who they are, and then they move on out.
okay, so when
And
you start,
I just want to add to my writing style is that
uh,
I studied, I pay attention to how people talk to each other, and I put that into the story to make sure that all the dialogue either moves the story forward and it reveals the characters, and it maintains conflict within the story.
okay, thank you for that. So, when you start a story, do you already know which narrative voice you use, or does that involve like a thorough revision? Can you walk us through how you decide on the point of view?
Well, it depends. I sometimes do third person, but mostly I do first person because that's the one that takes the reader and throws them right into what's going on with the main characters. So, and really, as people, we don't know each other unless we talk to each other. We're not telepathic yet. So that's the only way you really should do it. Oh, well, for me, that's the only way I want to do it, because if somebody doesn't talk to you, you don't know who they are.
So, what techniques do you use to keep your writing voice consistent, even as settings, like the pacing and tone shift throughout the story?
I'm not sure I have an answer for that, because I just sit down and write it, and I make sure that the characters go someplace and do something, in the sense that they're not just all standing around talking all the time, which is not really the story. It's just a conversation. So I make sure that there's that. And like I said, you don't really know anybody until they talk to you. So that's what I continue to do. I let me see, how can I put it? Basically I make sure that things are happening, that they're moving and they're talking at the same time rather than just being stoic.
Do you like it conversational and free flowing? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's proceed with the influences and genre choices. So, who are your biggest influences? Either the books, authors, or even films that shape Chaos Company. So, which influences do you try to mask versus show more overtly?
Well, I don't try to copy anybody or think like anybody, but the ones that have influenced me the most are Ray Bradbury and Edgar Rice Burroughs. Edgar Rice Burroughs was an interesting fellow because in 1912 he wrote his first science fiction novel, which was A Princess of Mars. And when he sent it out to publishers and stuff, pardon me, so he sent them out to publishers. In those days they had magazines and you could send it to a magazine a bit at a time, and then when it was done, publishers were offered to publish it. So he created A Princess of Mars, and then his next story was Tarzan of the Apes. And Tarzan of the Apes has one of these great beginnings where it says, I got this story from somebody who had no right telling me about it. Mm-hmm. And that's listed in there's in the publishing world or I don't really know how to say it, but they have a list of the best beginnings, and that's in the top 100 for Tarzan of the Apes. Says I get this story from somebody who had no business telling it to me. That makes the reader want to know what the story is about. So Burroughs is an interesting guy. He writes these action adventure stories. He makes sure that it moves forward. In a biography of somebody did of him, Burroughs said, never let the momentum get slowed down by conversation or looking around or description. Keep moving. So that's one of the things I do with my stories is I keep moving. I don't let them get bogged down with anything. And then he also said, even you don't have to spend 20 minutes or 20 pages describing anything like a tree. Even blind people know what a tree is because they can feel the bark and they can feel the stiffness of a tree and they know it's a tree. So if a blind person can see it, even without it, for just a little bit, then other people will understand it. They don't need a lot of description. So I try to keep the description not to the minimum, but to a level where it doesn't distract from anybody.
Okay. So you've chosen to work a hybrid realm of sci-fi and soft fantasy. So what draws you to the genre hybridity, and what do you see as the risks and rewards of working across genre boundaries?
Well, I'm not really sure who came up with that idea for me because I don't really think of it as gender boundaries. I don't think of it as being anything but science fiction. I don't know what else to say about that. I don't believe there's any fantasy in there, except the fact that people don't believe in anti-gravity anymore, even though NASA has a whole department designed to study anti-gravity. So if it's not real, if it's fantasy, why are they spending all that money studying it?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so is there a genre that you've always wanted to try but haven't yet? What would you need team, setting, or voice to attempt that kind of project?
Well, I wrote Chaos Company, and then a sequel called Chaos Allies, which is very different, not very different, but different from Chaos Company. And while I was writing Chaos Allies, I realized that all stories, whether people sitting around or going places and doing things, that's the thing, they're going someplace. And that's the essence of historical novels and Westerns. So I wrote a historical novel next called Writer Man. And I had, to begin with, I wrote like 80 pages, and I realized this is all juvenile. I can't put this down. So I threw it all away and started again. Had to give it a deeper think as to what was going on. And it starts with this young man who's just turned 13. He goes out and he was given his grandfather's rifle, and he goes out to off his farm in New Mexico to shoot a coyote that's been raiding the hen house. And along the way, he accidentally kills somebody. And so that's the beginning of the story. And then that ties in the main character, who's a ranger in Arizona in 1903. Just a little bit of history here. Mm-hmm. Arizona and New Mexico and Oklahoma didn't become states until early 1900s. So they are still territories. And so I have aspects of Westerns in there, and the main story, what's going on is about a redemption, and it's about mercy too, because along the way, my hero, Writer Man, doesn't feel at just hunting down people and taking them prisoner or killing them if they don't want to come in is enough, that there should be some element of mercy in there. And that's really how he solves the story in the end.
Okay, thank you for going through the book. So, do you find fiction more difficult than something rooted in real life like memoir? In what ways do you prefer one over the other?
Well, I prefer fiction. Mm-hmm. I've never really written memoirs, a little bit, but not much. Fiction is what I like, and that's what I want to do. And but there's a similarity in all writing. You know, if you're explaining somebody, or if you have passages in your memoirs of dialogue or things that you thought about or did, that all goes into the story. You have to have the same things in fictional life that occur to us in real life. Otherwise, it'll bore that person, and there won't be anyone that wants to read it. You don't want to bore your people, and that's part of the reason to maintain momentum. Because when you slow down, people start to say, "Well, you know, it's time to go get something to drink," and then they never come back and read the book again.
Okay. So while we're in this topic, if you ever consider writing nonfiction or a memoir, what part of your life or experience would you like to tell, and how would your approach differ from writing your novels?
Well, to begin with, I don't think I want to write any memoirs.
Okay.
But that said, I would talk about my childhood and about the childhood of my grown-up nieces and nephews, because that's the people that I talk to the most. And I don't know anything else about that, because I haven't really considered that idea at this point in my life.
Okay. Understandable. Fiction takes us everywhere. So, also me, if ever I become an author or writer myself, I will really choose fiction. The nonfiction. Okay. So, let's go to the deeper question. So, during revisions, how do you balance your storytelling impulses with reader expectations, and how do you manage the tension between surprising your audience and satisfying genre conventions?
Oh, that's a good one. Let me first say that when you're writing something, you have to have, in my opinion, you have to have a major plot, twist in the plot, about 30 or 40% in, because that changes everything. You have to have a moment where everything changes so that the characters are confronted with that change. A good example is last year I finished a third book in the Chaos Company series, the Chaos series. And in this series, this episode, we'll put it that, in this episode of this book, my hero is leading a squad of Marines into combat. And 2/3 of them decided just leave him behind because they don't like him. So they just leave him. So he's out in enemy territory with just 5 other people. And that's not enough to defend yourself from hundreds and thousands of aliens that are wanting to kill you. So that's the plot twist there, and he has to go figure out what to do. And he goes forward, but he has to keep an eye on the people that have stayed with him, because at least one of them blames my hero, Lion Biyela. That's a Zulu name, so don't get confused as to anything else. This one character blames him for his brother's death when they first landed on the planet. And so he has to keep an eye on this guy all the time, because this guy says, I'm going to kill you when we get to where we're going. Essentially, not those words, but that's basically what the story, that part of the story is. And so he's got to get his other Marines and this guy to a safe place, and they're trying to find the rest of their platoon who's been cut off behind enemy lines and rescue them.
So, what is the most technically difficult scene you've ever written, whether in Chaos Company or another project? And how did you overcome those challenges?
Oh, that's another good question. I think I'll have to split that into 2 parts.
Okay.
I'm not really sure that I had a technical problem, but I do know that I got off on a tangent while I was writing. And I realized that the tangent I was on, I would not be able to get back to the main storyline. I had written about 10,000 words, and there was no way to get back to the storyline without cheating the reader. So I just got rid of all 10,000 words and went back to the storyline and moved forward from there.
Yes, okay. So let's proceed to the lightning round, or the quick fire question. So I will ask you a question and you just say anything that comes to mind, like the first thing that comes to mind. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so first question. What is the first book you remember falling in love with?
Tarzan of the Apes.
Okay. Are you a morning writer or a late night writer?
I'm all the time writer. Sometimes I get up in the middle of the night, and sometimes I start early in the morning. Sometimes I just decide I want to go write instead of watch TV, so that's rare.
Oh, yes. You have to write it immediately before it leaves the mind. Okay, so coffee, tea, or something else while you're writing?
Actually, usually water and chocolate cookies.
Okay, that's a really good pair. And okay, so a single word that best describes your writing style.
Movement. Well, my wife said conversation, so I'll say conversation, because I do really value conversation.
Yes, yes, you stated that. Yes, you did value conversations. Okay, if you could co-author a book with any writer, living or dead, who would it be?
Ray Bradbury.
So, which comes first for you? Character, plot, or setting?
Character.
Yes.
Character always comes first.
Yes, you also stated that earlier. I just want to ask it again. So, a book you think every aspiring writer should read?
I have it right here. This, let's see, my picture, there we go. This book, Getting the Words Right, it's about revising, editing, and rewriting. Before that, my writing style was all over the place. And then I read that there, and it taught me so many important things, including one of the things that I tell everybody about is it says that if you really like the passage that you've done, get rid of it because it's about you and not about the story.
Yes, you need something to like start something. So you have to have the inspiration to write good
Mhm.
things. Okay. So if Chaos Company were adopted, would you prefer it as a film, TV series, or a graphic novel?
I think I'd like it as a film, maybe on Netflix. Who knows? The
Yeah.
thing is, it doesn't matter what you've written. Somebody's going to change it to fit to the story, and you have to have the um, willingness to let them do that. To begin with, there's a well, I'll just say this since I mentioned Tarzan. In 1932, they made a new Tarzan movie. It was in public domain, so all the studios were making Tarzan movies, and then they made a new one. It's not doesn't follow the book too closely, but the character is similar, and it's a really great movie. It made the company millions, and that's in a time when millions were measured in as thousands. So it did a really good job for them, and
Okay.
and so they did 11 more films.
Yes, yes. Okay. Okay, while we're at this topic, this is another question for that. Um, if an actor would portray like your main character in the story, are you thinking of someone already? Who would you want to portray as your main character?
Oh, well, a really good acting black actor, like Will Smith, or there's a lot of really good black actors out there. So I don't know who I would really pick, but that's who it has to be because my main character, Lion Biyela, is black. He's descendant from both the Zulu and the Maasai, the two most powerful tribes in Africa.
Will Smith is a good pick.
I was going to say one other thing is important. My story is to put in some humor. Will Smith would be able to do that.
Yes, I really love his movies and the way he, portrays his characters well. Yeah, Will Smith is a top tier actor. So, okay, let's continue. So, one word of advice you'd give your younger writer self.
Don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period where I wanted to do this, but I did other things for about 2 decades because I wasn't really sure I was going to make it. And then finally I started doing serious writing.
So, yeah, never give up. Okay. There is a way if you really want to do it. So, yes. Okay, so the most unusual place you've ever written a scene.
Most unusual place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have anything like that. I like to go out in nature and I like to go places and do things. And the only thing I can think about that is, well, when I was a young man, I was a very foolish young man, and I did a lot of freestyle climbing up cliffs and stuff. And I
Uh-huh.
climbed one which belonged to wasn't in the was on I was in a park, but it was outside the park. When I got up to the top, there was a guy up on top hunting animals, and he had a rifle and a big dog. And I saw him, and he saw me, and I just let go and let myself fall a few feet. And I heard a boom up there, and then I went back up there. I don't know, maybe his gun went off, but he was
Oh,
running fast away from where I was.
oh. So last question. If you could have dinner with one of your characters, who would it be and why?
Hmm. Well, my first book was, um, what's the name of my first book? And Sky Knights. And my hero was fearless, but he was afraid and his only family he didn't have any family in the universe. His only family was his fellow pilots. So, and the man that made the most influence on him was his um, commanding officer. So I'd have to have dinner with that commanding officer.
Okay. If I may ask, how many books have you written so far, Mr. Domenichini?
I've written 4 science fiction novels. I'm in the process of writing a 5th one. And I've written 1 historical novel or Western. Westerns are supposed to be from 1865 to 1890. But this is set in 1903. And so it's basically, they've changed the boundaries there. So it still probably is a Western. And I like that one. I like it because that's the one where my hero, he went off to fight. He left his bride at the altar and ran off to fight in the Spanish-American War. When he gets back, all of his friends are heroes in the United States, but when he gets back to his hometown, nobody likes him because he ran off on his bride-to-be, and while he was gone, she had a baby, and the baby died. And so everybody hates him. Even his mother hates him. So he runs away, and he gets one bad job after another until he goes out into the hills to die. He makes sure there's food for his horse, and he's just waiting to die. And an Arizona Ranger finds him and convinces him that he's just a person they need in the Rangers because he fought in the Spanish-American War. When they went up San Juan Hill, artillery shells were dropping on them, and everybody was shooting down on them, and 2/3 of the people who went up the hill were killed. And he did that, and he came back. So that he felt that was the job for him, and that's what that job doesn't have any mercy in it. So later on in the story, he realizes that he needs to be more than just a killing machine.
That's an interesting plot. It can really hook the readers. Okay. Okay, I'm excited for that. So before we end the interview, do you have the physical copy of your book, The Chaos Company, with you?
Well, it's the one where I showed you the picture of the Gorgon on the front here. This is it.
Okay.
I get it back here a little better so you can see it better.
Okay, so can you tell our audience where to buy the book and why they need to read the book?
Well, you can get it on Amazon right now. It's in it's in electronic. It's available in electronic books right now, and we're trying to make it a print copy again. And I think you can get into it more if you're reading it as a paperback book, and then you can have it and go anywhere with it instead of having to have your Kindle all the time. If your Kindle runs out of power, or it's damaged in some way, then you can't read it. But if you have the paper copy, you can do that. I've had a lot of people who've told me that they prefer the paper copy to the electronic copy.
Yes, indeed.
Nowadays, people are going back away from electronic and back into having something material that they can look on their bookshelf and feel good about.
Indeed. Okay. And that's a really thick book. I really like thick books. How many pages does it have?
I have to look at it again. 603.
Yes. I usually like reading those types of books wherein, it's thicker. So I think it will really hook the readers. Okay. So, Mr. Domenichini, thank you for bringing us into the world of Chaos Company and sharing your craft, influences, and vision for storytelling. So, your debut print release is more than a military sci-fi adventure. It's a story about people, sacrifice, and resilience. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us here at Bookwrights House. May this conversation inspire you to explore new worlds, push beyond genre boundaries, and keep turning pages with curiosity and courage. So until next time, keep reading, keep imagining, and keep asking the big questions. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.